Okay, social scientist is an oxymoron. This evil man starts making excuses for the abuse of little boys. He's actually advocating them being held back. What a lowlife. What a lowlife. I'm getting angry just hearing about it, right?
Have
So
that option. I
anyway, let's get into this.
Well, as a mother of two young boys, I think a lot about how to raise them in a society where boys and men are falling behind in several different areas, according
If you're a mother, then you are a lowlife. Boys aren't falling behind, they're being held back. And so for this is proof that mothers dislike their boys as much as anyone else.
to the data, like in education, the workforce, and social settings. And that led me to want to further explore the why behind it. So this week, we're rolling out a series with social scientist Richard Reeves, and he has studied these trends.
I doubt you don't know what's going on. So you're going to obscure the truth, and you don't give two shits about your sons.
Extensively as the founding president of the American Institute for Boys and Men. And he's also the author of Boys and Men, Why the Modern Male is Struggling, Why It Matters, and What to Do About It. So I want to begin with the foundational years of
Why it matters. Why does discrimination matter when it happens to boys? We have to explain that, right? Discrimination for any other group is considered bad, but we have to explain it for men and boys. Right.
shaping boys in the classroom, starting with kindergarten. This summer,
This is starting when they're just children, small children, kindergarten.
Washington, D.C. joined a group of major school districts across the country banning the practice of redshirting, where families delay kindergarten a year to give their child more time to develop emotionally or academically. New York City, Chicago, and Oklahoma public schools have all passed similar bans or restrictions on that practice, arguing it benefits wealthy families and that students should be with kids their own age. Others
I agree. So this lowlife, this Reeves character, is going to suggest they do it to boys to keep them even further back.
states support redshirting, with Tennessee finding that redshirted students perform better later on in third grade literacy tests than their peers. Reeves explains why he's concerned about this growing trend of banning redshirting and why parents should strongly consider holding back their boys in kindergarten.
Why not their girls? If redshirting is so good and promotes good, how come he isn't promoting it for both genders? Because he's trying to give a leg up to the girls again. This Reeves character is a part of the problem. He is male hostile. This grown-ass man is attacking helpless boys. He's the lowest of the low.
What are your big issues with education and men and boys?
The education system has become less boy friendly.
Well, it's become boy hostile. Be honest. See, this milquetoast framing is to avoid the issue. It's to avoid blaming the female teachers.
Over the last few decades. There's a few reasons for that. One is a huge decline in the share of male teachers. And I think that inevitably has an effect on the culture and ethos of the school. And we do know that.
Really? So lack of male teachers. So the female teachers are hostile. That's why.
When it comes to behavioral issues, etc., that having some men around helps. Because whether we like it or not, there are differences in the way that we behave. And so having male teachers around just really helps us not to immediately pathologize the way in which boys are acting.
Okay, so if male teachers cuts back on the pathologizing of male behavior, that ergo means the female teachers do pathologize the behavior of little boys because they don't like them. And this is what this cretin leaves out.
I think one of the problems is that we have this view about how a student should be. And so sit still for a certain period of time, focus on abstract work, have a certain level
of... No, not abstract work. Guys are better at abstraction than women are.
Emotional maturity and
emotional security in kindergartners. So this disgusting lowlife is suggesting that little girls in kindergartens have emotional maturity. This is a bold-faced lie by this woman-worshiping, man-hating subhuman.
Probably that student we've got in mind is a girl. And if boys aren't like that, we treat them like malfunctioning girls.
Bullshit. Bullshit. You don't treat them like malfunctioning girls. You treat them like boys. You don't like them. Female teachers don't like them. Do you hear that, mother of two boys? Why aren't you sticking up for your sons since you care about them so much?
Sort of defective female students in a way, and so they get overdiagnosed with ADD, etc., or sometimes behavior just gets treated as requiring, suspension or whatever. And
So they're kicking them out of school, and they're misdiagnosing them. By the way, the diagnosis of ADD or these other diagnoses requires drugging them, medication, which you don't dare do to a brain that's still developing. So these female teachers are purposely doing it to harm the boys' development. They want them to fail.
And so it's a good reminder that these things are all on the average. The average 5-year-old girl is older than the average 5-year-old boy.
That's a bold-faced lie. Bold-faced. Little girls have no more brain development than little boys. They get a spurt during puberty. They start off earlier then, but not at 3, 4, and 5. This man is lying. This man is telling a bold-faced lie. You are a bold-faced liar, Reeves. What an evil man.
And the average 15-year-old girl is definitely older than the average 15-year-old boy, as every parent will tell you.
And you don't have a teenage daughter, do you, dude? Just because the brains start developing quicker doesn't mean they have more maturity. They don't. And frankly, these girls lack maturity that boys do because they aren't beaten into their roles like boys do. They deal with female privilege that lets them act out.
You, and as every teacher will tell you, girls hit puberty earlier, their brains develop earlier, they become adult or more adult earlier than boys.
This also explains, guys, why they introduce IQ tests around that age. I know someone else pointed this out. The girls have a head start. They develop earlier, and so they want the girls to look good. So that's when they introduce the IQ test. Not when the kids are 6 and equal, not when they're 17 and equal. Right?
Boys do. And that really translates into academic outcomes because then they do their homework, they do turn up on time. They've got their act together a little bit earlier than boys, and so that's why you see some.
And also what he's leaving out here, their act together. Boys who are seen as goody two-shoes don't get laid. This dude, just like all the young guys he's speaking about, his top priority is getting female attention and validation. And if the girls are deselecting guys who do well at school, the guys are incentivized not to do that. So he's leaving that out, of course.
These huge education gaps that we couldn't see before.
So then if you think based on the data that the 5-year-old girl is more ahead than the 5-year-old boy, should 5-year-old boys be held back and redshirted for kindergarten?
That's a good point. Matter of fact, it's a rhetorical question because she knows the answer to that. She should be outraged at his opinion. She's not, because she doesn't give a shit about her boys.
I think they should, or at least they should have that option. I think that the fact that boys...
They should, or they should have that option. But he said they should at the beginning. So this guy has argued right off the bat that in his opinion, which is wrong, is that girls are more mature than boys. Yet boys are the ones that should be held back in addition. So this guy's outright evil, period. He's out to harm children just because of the sex they were born. Now, this cretin is getting given a voice on CNN, no less.
Boys are known to be developmentally a little bit less mature than girls. So in terms of school readiness at around the age of 5, the
That's a lie, right?
gender gap is bigger than almost any other gap you can find, class, race, etc. And so what you're seeing is just everyone knows this, is just that boys are just a little bit less likely to be ready. So why not give them more time? Give them an extra year of pre-K. Give them.
So what suggesting is that if you have a 7-year-old girl and a 7-year-old boy, the 7-year-old girl's already in grade 3. He's only in grade 2. And here's another thing, you disgusting cretin. You know that boys have to build up status to get with women. You're building up your status now to keep your wife around. I suspect this lame duck is married, right? So these young boys, they have to be ahead of the girls when they hit their late teens and their 20s in order to bribe them into their lives. So he's working to stop that.
A few months more of pre-K, so that then you would actually be leveling the field.
So he knows the boys aren't falling behind. He's advocating for keeping them behind.
I think at the very least that should be an option that's available to parents.
It's not always an option, like in DC where we are.
Right. In DC, they just banned this, following the lead of some other cities. And the reason they did.
Well, that's good. I'm glad they did ban redshirting. I'm glad they did.
That was because they saw more affluent parents doing it. So more affluent parents were actually holding their boys back, especially.
Oh, yes, affluent. We're holding their boys back, but not their girls. Right.
To give them more chance in the school system, right? To give them more chance to succeed academically.
Nothing helps your success in academics like preventing you from getting academics.
The irony here is actually it's the lower income boys who would benefit more from a bit of extra time. And so the
Oh, wow. The lower income, like that's what boys need, right? Being held back when they're already impoverished in an impoverished environment. That'll help.
challenge here is that what the DC school board and others see is like a class gap. So they see affluent parents doing it, but not lower income parents doing it.
What's your advice to parents through this journey of putting their boys through school and trying to get them ready for the world?
Well, the key thing is that there's much more variation like between individual kids of all genders and races than there is like
all genders. Yeah, right. Like I said, social scientist is an oxymoron. If there's more than 2 genders, how come he's only talking about 2? This whole time he's only talked about 2 genders, girls and boys. How come he's not talking about the 3rd and 4th? Like these liars always expose themselves.
you can't just have one rule. Mm-hmm. There is no one size fits all rule here. But I would say,
but you are. It's an all one size fits for all boys. That's 50% of the population. So again, he's lying. He's just a liar. How do evil people like this get up in the morning, look in the mirror?
That if you are concerned that your son in particular, this could apply to your daughter too, is just not ready for school, is not ready for...
Why are you talking about your daughter? You already said this is strictly something you want for boys. It's a little late now to pretend that you're human or an egalitarian.
Kindergarten, and certainly not ready for first grade. Talk to teachers about it. You know, take your own instincts seriously. Mm. There's a sort of industrial quality to the education system too often, which is like the conveyor belt starts at this age and we have to put your kids on and then they'll fall off the conveyor belt at the other end, and that's just the way the system is, and the kids are like you know, going onto this conveyor belt like in a factory.
No, he didn't suggest that the system should change by like saying, hey, we should do something with these hostile women who teach those boys. Right? He doesn't suggest that boys should automatically get a male teacher since those women are hostile to them. Right? No, just let a few more men have some jobs. What, those men that were held back when they were in kindergarten and accused of pedophilia if they become kindergarten teachers? Those men?
Actually, it's like, well, maybe they're not ready for the conveyor belt. Like, maybe we could be a little bit more human about this and just ask the question, are they ready and could they benefit from a bit more time, and talk to the teachers about that. So we should definitely take your instincts seriously about that. And the other thing I would say to parents as much as to teachers is that,
Hey, mom, you're a mom, right? You don't have any opinions of your own? Don't you have any opinions as a mother? I bet if it was your girls being redshirted, you would have some definite opinions that you'd be happy to share with this clown.
there is a danger, I think, even in the home, where we're holding our boys to a different standard. And we're saying to ourselves, and sometimes even to them, why aren't you more like your sister? I used to think about my boys, why aren't you more like your sister?
Well, then you're a man hater, you lowlife. More like your sisters. In other words, why aren't you female? That's what he's saying. This is a woman worshiping cretin. His boys should be taken away from him for their mental health and welfare.
And they didn't have a sister. I made one up. I had an imaginary daughter that I could compare.
Wow, this guy is a complete misandrist. Right. You know what I do? Because he had a daughter, you would have to admit that, well, you wouldn't have to admit, you're a liar, but you would see that she is no more mature than her brothers at the same age. You'd still lie about it, though. And you'd still like her more. She's female.
Them to always badly, like, and she would be able to remember to put both her shoes on
Right.
before going to school. When I opened her
Okay, you're full of shit. You really don't know what you're talking about. Guys, I have so many nieces and great nieces. They're just like, they're kids like the boys are. They leave the doors open, they pick their nose, and they don't tie their shoes. This guy either doesn't know what he's talking about or he's a liar.
book bag, it wasn't like a controlled explosion of stuff. When she brought chemistry homework home, it wasn't in a ball, right? It was in a file. It was in a folder, right? And so even I, without having a daughter, I think I...
So the boys aren't neat and therefore they should be held back from school. This man is, he's riling me up so badly. I despise this guy. Like a red hot iron.
I had this kind of imaginary ideal, and I do think that we all need to show a bit more patience, a bit more grace to our boys if they're struggling in the education system.
But you admit they're not struggling. You wanted more male teachers. You admit the women see them as broken females. That is, they're male.
Yeah, really interesting hearing his perspective on it, right? As someone who has studied the issue. My kids actually, they just went back to school today. And
First day of school today.
First day of school today. And
Gee, Mom, aren't you holding them back? Your little cretin boys, according to you, don't deserve this. I guess maybe you didn't take his advice. Hey, I'm sorry about calling your boys aren't cretins. You're a cretin. The little boys are helpless children. Aren't you holding them back? Right? Didn't you take his advice? I'm going to make my boys better at school by keeping them out of it.
teachers are amazing. And, and he said that too. Look,
Teachers are amazing. These teachers that are expelling boys because they're a bit rowdy in class, they're amazing.
Teachers really are, and they should get more credit than they've currently.
Well, we should give female teachers credit for hating on helpless children.
receive. At the same time, what he pointed out was interesting about just some of the issues and the education system now with, fewer male teachers, and those male teachers might be able to better understand the boys' behavior and that kind of.
So you're saying that the females lack understanding of boys. You're also not leaving out that the fact they don't like them. Female teachers downmark boys. That's not merely not understanding them, is it? Mom,
thing, and his concern was that
you need your boys taken away from you too.
Without that, you over pathologize with boys and diagnose them with things.
Over pathologize. So there's a good level of pathologizing that boys deserve. Does this woman hear the shit that comes out of her mouth? Your boys need rescuing from you badly. By the way, a mother like this, she'll be the first one to say the boys when they're falling behind due to other forces that, hey, how come you aren't pulling your bootstraps up? Or how come you weren't achieving? Right? How come you aren't moving out of the house? And where's my grandchildren?
Such as ADD, and some rightly have it, but by doing that, you're pathologizing with typical boy behavior, right? And so it was really interesting, the case he made for holding kids back a year in kindergarten.
Yeah, but you're not talking about kids, you're talking about boys. So how is holding boys back going to stop the pathologizing of their behavior? This is gibberish.
I'm really happy that you're doing these special reports for us here in the Situation Room, and I know our viewers are happy as well, and there's more to come.
Yeah, there's more to come. And
Wow. There's more to come. There's more bullshit and lies about little boys to come. More pretense from this woman that she cares about her son's well-being. And this old dude here, I want to call him something else. He's all for it too. You know why? Because he's old. He made it. He doesn't care. He doesn't like boys either. Let them all fail. I spit on these people. I spit on you. Every one of you.